Well, comedian Louis C.K. raised some eyebrows on Joe Rogan's podcast when he hammered Americans for prioritizing the country's safety over the security of others. I don't know what he was meaning. We're going to talk a little bit about it. Well, here's what he said. Here's a solution.
You're not supposed to be happy, and you're not supposed to be safe. I think that that's the problem, is that people expect that. My feeling is they should open the border, and just let them pour in, let everybody pour in, and then the answer, which is, well, then there'll be all these problems. Yes, there should be. It shouldn't be so great here, is what I'm saying, in America.
Let's bring in Douglas Murray, Fox News contributor. So the conversation goes on, and one of the things Louis C.K. said was both the left and the right get to extremes on this issue, and we need to get back to a certain place. But he does provide some food for thought, some controversy for us to talk about this morning. Are Americans too comfortable?
I admire Louis C.K. as a comedian, but he's not a migration expert by a very long way. You know, we have a fairly open southern border at the moment in the United States, and we see all over the country the results of that, obviously in the border states. But look at the problems that New York is going through. New York, where it's sitting, has had thousands, a small number by comparison with what's coming in the southern border, thousands of people put into the city here and having to be rehoused at hotels. What's the cost of that to New Yorkers? Already millions of dollars a year as taxpayers. That's just a tiny example. There's something like 800 million people in Central and South America who could come here, several times the population of the United States. You know, I always say you either have a country or you don't. You either have a system where people who live in the country pay taxes and get things back for their taxes, or you allow the world in which case it's free for all, a kind of free buffet, which doesn't last very long. So that's right. Kind of the answer to Louis C.K.'s question. It wouldn't just be bad for a little time. It would be bad very fast and then over. So, as I say, he's a very funny guy, but not a thinker.
Maybe that's a shot of comedy right there, right? Open borders, folks, thinks that, you know, there should be equity for all people. They should be able to go from third world to first world without complication. Got another topic for you, okay? I don't know if you saw this in the New Yorker. A gentleman by the name of Idris Kowloon is writing about men in the world, not just America. Says, what's the matter with men? They're floundering at school and in the workplace. Some conservatives blame a crisis of masculinity, but the problems and their solutions are far more complex. It goes on from there. He tweeted that he saw a book by Richard Reeves a couple years ago. And you said you saw this book and read it yourself. What's this all about?
It came out last year. Well, even the left is starting to concede there's a problem with young men in particular. Their way of doing it is to say, you know, it's more complex than these right-wingers are saying. It is quite complex. And it's also quite straightforward. Young men, particularly in America, have been for a generation now deeply demoralized. They've been dropping out of school at historic rates, dropping out of university at historic rates, applying for university and college at lower rates than ever before. And there is a reason for this. They have grown up in this culture which everyone from politicians to Gillette and, you know, major firms have said, you know, men are the problem. Masculinity is the problem. That nothing will be right in America or equal until absolutely everything is fair between the sexes. And the problem that they always encounter with this is there are certain high-profile professions which women have been underrepresented in, and minorities have been underrepresented in. The answer to this is not a zero-sum game where you say, as a result, we should beat up on men for a bit. We should demoralize them. We should tell them they're not capable of things. Just because historically women went to university less than men does not mean that today you should tell men, you know, you've got to pay for the past. You're going to have to suffer in this generation in order to get to equity. That's what the left has been pushing. I experience it myself with readers and audience, and when I speak to college students and much more. They all know the score on this. All the young men have been told effectively to hold back. And here's the thing, it goes back to a bit to the last segment. If America is going to remain successful in the world, if it's going to remain the most dynamic economy, it's going to need half the population.
Absolutely.
It's going to need them. It's going to need the female half of the population. It's going to need the male half of the population too. So the consequences long-term of telling the male half of the population, hold back, don't be ambitious, don't be thrusting, this is all toxic, nasty stuff.
And that you're the problem.
You're the problem. No, we will as a country experience the problem and the consequences of that long-term for a long time to come. Yeah. So I'm glad that the New Yorker and other media like that are picking up on the fact that there's a point here. There's more than a point here. There's a huge national problem.
Well, thanks for coming on today and making some good points for us.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you,
Have a good weekend.
You bet.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.